Huzzah!
Hey,
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all the Technicolor rainbows in between, welcome to the Battle Brothers podcast, or as our friendly Mr. Popo would say, welcome to the room of infinite bullshit.
welcome everybody.
I'm Angel Angron.
And I am the Chill Zone. It's
So
been
how did this even happen? How did this
yeah,
podcast came to be?
yeah. Well, it was like just an amicable talk that we had one day since we both shared a passion of Warhammer, and we thought, man, we've been spending a lot of time talking about this, just the two of us. How about we share?
And not only we spent a lot of time talking about it, we spent quite a bit of time arguing about it,
Oh
but in a
yeah.
friendly way. Aside from some things that are completely irrefutable in the lore, we have a pretty distinct difference of opinion on a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
which I think will make for interesting content. I hope the people will agree.
Yeah, that's what makes
So,
Warhammer great. The disagreement, in
100%.
fact.
So this is in the tradition of the great comedy series of our time, Friends, will be labeled as the one where they introduce newbies to the setting.
Yeah.
What is the point of this episode? Why are we starting here? Well, our Lord and Savior Henry Cavill is creating a Warhammer cinematic universe. We're going to have a lot of newbies, hopefully. That's the whole point. That's what we want for the hobby to grow.
Mhm.
The lore and the setting are frightfully deep.
Oh yeah.
Depending on what you count as acceptable written material, there are hundreds of books
Too many
and
pages.
in dozens of games and several fucking animated shows to consume to understand the lore.
Yeah.
And if I was a pedestrian just coming into the hobby right now, and my introduction would be, hey, listen, there's like 50 times more content than Lord of the Rings to consume so you can understand what's going on. My response would be, yeah, fuck that.
Uh, see you another day.
Like if you were to take all the audiobooks and just the audiobooks and listen to them back to back, they would play approximately 4 months. That's a lot of fucking
It's too
playtime.
much.
It's a lot of fucking playtime.
That's a lot of cleaning to do.
Yeah. So seeing that we're trying to make it more accessible, we are going to try and stuff the lore into acceptable size conversations where in most cases two opinions will be heard, and it's up to the listener, which is you fine gentlemen and ladies out there, to
Mhm.
decide what's their point of it. And please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We had a wonderful debate in the Primarch tier list
Oh, it was a nice one.
about that. I'm gonna need to talk to you folks for a second.
Oh,
I
here comes
think
the
a lot of
thunder.
you I think a lot of you misunderstood the quotation marks in the word definitive. Clearly, it was just opinions, and all of your opinions are valid, unless you like Ferris Manus. I'm sorry. Um, all of your opinions are valid. It's really cool to like the Lion. I don't even think that the Lion is a bad character. I think he has all the potential in the world to be quite possibly the coolest Primarch.
Certainly.
But they kind of made him into a mix of pick a warlord and the Rain Man. Like that's
Well, we did make the Broly comparison, and as we've seen, for those who may also be like fans of anime, there have been two iterations of the character. The kind of pretty dumb one, but also at the same time very awesome, and the rework version of him that is very, very likable.
I know how to define him. It came to me right now.
Mhm.
He's Alexander the Great with Asperger's.
Hey, somebody's in the comment section is gonna say, "Hey, hello, hello."
We actually had a guy, by the way, hats off to you for just jumping into the conversation like that, saying, I like the Lion and I have autism. Those two are not connected at all. But goddamn the balls of you to start a comment with that statement. Hats off to you, sir.
Love
I
it.
consider you a gentleman and a scholar.
I love it.
Absolutely love it. The comments were spicy. And yes, I know that I ranked Angron pretty high. It's in my fucking name, guys. Why are you surprised?
Well, in the least, one thing that we can be pretty happy about is that nobody liked the EDP edit.
Oh, thank God. I would have to start swinging the banhammer.
Oh, fair on.
Shit. Jesus Christ. All right. So before we get into introducing what is the lore, because that is a monumental task on itself, we need to talk about some Twitter drama.
Yeah.
So we had to talk about it, but since we talked about it, my opinion did an iron fist and fortified. I started off giving Templin Institute the benefit of some doubt.
Yeah.
But he did two things that I consider unforgivable. Number one, he handled the whole situation extremely disingenuously, which I just consider in bad taste. Bad form, lad. Bad form.
Yeah.
The second one, which again, unforgivable, reprehensible, a crime against humanity. He had me agreeing with Ark. For the love of God, if anything is worth capital punishment, it's having me agree with that. I'm not going to say that word. I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, Mama Susan's going to come after you. She'll send the Inquisition, so be careful.
Who's going to come after me?
Mama Susan, the CEO of YouTube.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm getting like a SEAL Team 6 of YouTube reps jumping into my email. From second this to second this, you used unacceptable language.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So why did I have an issue with Templin Institute? Aside from the fact that he's canonically wrong. Now, can say, oh, the canon can be whatever you want it to be. And theoretically,
sure,
it would be accurate. As these are works of fiction, they can be retconned and revamped.
Yeah.
Not every
And if we were to operate within the benefit of the doubt argument, there is a little bit of that homebrewing also going on in Warhammer 40k, as people can add to the lore as they see fit in the homebrewing part of things.
That's kind of the point of the 2nd and 11th Primarchs, that you'll make homebrew chapters. When you're looking at it from a business perspective and a gaming perspective, some things are vague in the lore for you to get creative with. This is exactly like why some things are open to interpretation, or you are clearly and literally given freedom to do your own shit in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting into that.
No, not that Hasbro thing.
No, that apparently has kind of resolved itself for now.
Yeah.
So the issue I had with is, if you're going to retcon something, if you want to change how you address a certain demographic in a lore, there has to be a fucking need to. For example, if there's one thing I would retcon out of the lore, is I would delete the entire subject that talked about the fucking Grey Knights bathing in Adeptus Sororitas blood to fend off demons, because they're all fucking psykers already, goddammit. That is some shit that needs to be retconned. But we're talking about a lore that, despite its grimdark nature and body horror descriptions, is quite diverse and tolerant.
Insanely diverse and tolerant.
Like in the legions, the Astra Militarum, the Inquisition, the Adeptus Sororitas, the factions of chaos, different Xenos, you literally have a representation of every race, gender, and everything in between, including LGBTQ representation. Like there's something for everyone.
There's a literal god that does not identify, that is non-binary.
There is a Sister of Silence in a mainstream book. It's a key figure in Saturnine, Janine Kroll.
Yeah.
Who is outright a lesbian.
Yeah. Janisha, the badass.
And the thing is, the beautiful thing about the lore, all of those things are wholesomely welcome, as much as 40k can be wholesome, and no one makes a big deal about it, because I would expect that, like, in the year 40,000, you'd be tolerant to different spectrums of gender and race.
Yeah.
Unless they're your orcs. We're going to kill you if you're an orc. Just the way it works.
Hey, they are plant-based. Okay.
Vegan representation. Are orcs basically Antifa vegans?
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Yeah, if you put it that way.
God damn, it took me all of 5 minutes to get extra spicy. The issue that it had, if you look at just the video on itself, aside from being a little silly, it would appear harmless. But the mess on Twitter, where he literally, I'm going to distill it, I'm not going to quote verbatim, but if you disagree with my thoughts on the lore, then you're chauvinistic, misogynistic, you're an incel, you're whatever, you don't know anything, you don't understand the lore, and basically you think that girls have cooties. But while there are some, mostly in the tabletop community that I've come across, gatekeeping incels, they exist.
Oh yeah, every fandom has a certain bunch.
Yeah, like every fandom is somewhat toxic if you run into the wrong people.
Yeah.
But all in all, as a setting, as a product, we have, like, for example, a high level animated series focused immensely on Sisters of Battle. The Sisters of Battle, as an all-female chapter that has no men at all, are one of the most popular factions in all of the settings.
Yeah, not just in literature, but also commercially speaking.
Did you know that aside from Space Marine and Prominent Commissars, there are more books about Sisters of Battle than there are, I think, if I'm not mistaken, all Xenos combined? If I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of it is short stories.
Yeah.
But, man, they get more love than Necrons, they get more love than orcs, and rightfully so, because the Sisters of Battle are fucking cool.
Yeah, they're fucking badass.
Hell fucking yeah. And I would dare anyone to tell me that in the Hell's Reach animation, when the Sisters of Battle turned up, you did not get fucking goosebumps.
Oh, so good.
And Ephriel Stern always starts a book burning in my loins. God damn it.
She needs a protein shake right now.
The definition of step on me, mommy. Yes, shockingly, the jacked powerlifter likes muscular women. Who knew?
Who knew?
Who would assume? Like, for the most part, even like the YouTube community is rather wholesome. Even Major Kill became somewhat wholesome. I've grown to like this dude.
Mm-hmm.
And he does jujitsu, so I can't hate on him. Like, we share a passion.
Hey.
Yeah, we both compete in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I cannot hate on the guy.
Nice.
You should check out his competition video. He did very well in the tournament. Like, for a novice competitor, he did very well.
Oh, that's cool.
To you, sir. Yeah, he looked very sharp for a novice. That was very cool to see.
Nice.
I understand there were a lot of shifting in the channel, and several people left the channel, or at least one key person left the channel, and it's quite visible.
Yeah.
I don't like people stirring up shit just to, like,
for clickbaiting, and stop that.
It's in poor taste. It was wrong. You addressed people wrong, and people were saying valid points. Hey, the lore has been very consistent from, I would say, 4th edition until now.
Yeah.
So you have a good 15 to 20 years of consistent lore.
Mm-hmm.
Why fuck with it?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no shortage of representation of any way, shape, or form that I know of in the lore. Please feel free to correct me in the comments if there are sections of society that are misrepresented or underrepresented in the lore. That would be interesting to know.
Yeah.
But like, just on the Space Marine legions, we have anything from Slavic terrorists all the way to Mongol raiders and English knights in space and Roman emperors. Like, we have everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something for everyone, but not everything should be for everyone.
No.
No one is saying, oh, there should be men adeptus sororitas, but that's the fucking point of nuns with guns.
Yeah. You literally have faction-specific stuff. That's how it operates.
And it kind of makes it cool.
Yeah.
Everyone can find his niche and find where he's comfortable and stand on it and simp on it. Like,
exactly.
You know, aside from me really loving Angron, I fanboy the fuck out of the Black Templars.
Oh yeah.
Like, I am probably the biggest Sigismund fan, at least that I know of. Like, so like there's something for everyone, and you carve out your own little space in the lore and in the fandom.
Yeah.
Trying to make everything inclusive is just dumb, because the lore by its own nature is open for you to find your space in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Your thoughts on the subject?
Pretty much the same, dude. I'm kind of disappointed that he decided to go in that direction. Like, he made a valid point in saying that, yeah, your interpretation can be valid, and so would his be. But again, as it always comes, the way that you present your arguments with so much animosity towards people, and the entire thing just felt as if, oh, I'm saying this and I'm sure that I'm going to get attacked. Then you know already that what disposition you are taking, and that's not good. As we've said right now, and I'll repeat again, I want everybody to be able to find their niche somewhere, but don't stir shit up just for the sake of stirring shit up. So that's kind of all I'm going to say.
You really hit him with the "I'm not mad, I'm disappointed."
Yeah, basically.
That's harsh. I had flashbacks of my uncle giving me a talking to.
And in the same way, when we make a tier list, for example, we like to hear each other's feedback, because there is an extensive amount of things that we can talk about, and it's always great to see different sorts of opinions because it's so vast. But don't come and do things in bad faith, because that's what it is.
And here's the thing: you only get one shot to make a first impression.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, when you stir shit up, you do get fresh eyes on the product. But that's the first impression that you make. I'm the type of guy that will stir shit up over a nothing burger.
Yeah.
So why should I care about the next time you stir shit up?
It's unfortunate.
This is why even in the tier list, I reserve my rants for hills that I'm willing to die on. For example, Ferrus Manus being useless. I will die on that hill until Games Workshop will get off their asses and give this motherfucker some noteworthy lore.
Yeah, the Siege of Terra isn't over yet. Listen, fans of the Iron
I'm
Hand.
sorry, run that back?
The books, okay? There are books coming.
This motherfucker's been headless for a good 6 years in the lore.
I don't know, man. They can establish him as making him actually a ghost, like in the TTS series. So
I would stand that so hard.
If he has been like some aberration that's been haunting his fellow Primarchs, brothers, for years on end, hell fucking yeah.
You know, at some point they're gonna have him haunt Magnus or something just to stick it to the Alphabusa being dicks. You know they're gonna do it.
Magnus, you are weak.
You did things wrong, Magnus.
You did all the wrongs.
Thank you, brother. I am well aware. By the way, hats off to the dude that voiced Magnus in TTS. Impeccable job. Like, everyone's really good, but he really, like, him and the guy who did Lehman Russ, Zoran the Bear. I know he did Russ. They just knocked it out of the park. They're my like they're my MVPs for that show.
Yeah, great VA. But I still cannot get it out of my head. Like the muscular Magnus that we know. I recently saw somebody because I'm like I have a subscription on our station, so I get like notification from certain artists. And a dude made a wonderful art of Magnus speaking at the Council of Nakia. And I'm just imagining right now, soul as Magnus, glowing in all of his red, having that nerd voice. Oh boy, it's so fucking
I
fun.
swear, some TTS voices play in my head when I think about quotes from the lore.
Indeed.
Rogel Dorn, I am the fortress now, father. Like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they ruined Rogel Dorn for me, and I'm just kidding. They're impeccable, amazing work, and I will always hear the Pillarman music every time someone mentions Custodes. Oh,
oh, brother Santodes. Beep. Mechanicus, I want to enter your temple.
Okay.
Anyways, we're getting we're getting.
Oh, I can't wait to be like him when I get fucking murdered. Let's address the 300 book elephant in the room.
The lore.
How the fuck do you introduce this lore and this setting to a newbie?
Oh, so, it's hard.
What we're going to do in this, what will most likely be a 2-part video, because to do it all in one sitting will probably take like 2 hours, and fuck that.
Yeah.
We're trying to make these podcasts palatable and keep things under an hour.
Mm.
We won't always get there because some subjects are just absolutely insanely in depth, but we're going to skim over a lot of things to make it bite-sized for the average new consumer.
Yeah.
So we begin at the real beginning, because Warhammer isn't the story of the Emperor. It isn't the story of the Adeptus Sororitas. It isn't the story of the Space Marines. At the bottom of it, at the bottom line of it, it is the story of humanity inside a universe that is completely lost its shit.
Yeah, it's about us, people.
It's about all of us. But how did we get there? Because everything that I was really torn about where do we fucking start? Because we could say, well, start with the Great Crusade. But I have to explain why you had to do a Great Crusade. Or you could start with the Age of Strife. But then you could say, how did we even get there? Yeah. So my venerable salamander brother here suggested, let's just do all of it.
Yeah, let's go through a timeline, so to speak, on from a 0 to 100 to 40,000. So let's get into it. So what should we say? Warhammer is one of these fantastic sci-fi story that kind of like are not unique in the sense that, like many other sci-fi, they have the familiarity, of course, taking the main point from us, our story. So we'll say that everything that happens in recorded human history, so our time, has also happened in 40k. So we are talking about every cultural, religious, technological, political, you name it, all of those expansion that humanity has had has happened in 40k, just like it has for us. But since the setting is set into the far future, all of those things are basically done away with, or if they remain, they have been twisted to a certain degree that is like kind of unrecognizable to both the reader and at time also the characters within the narrative. And of course, it depends if you find a certain planet in this intergalactic space that's been hit with a reset button. So you have something like the Flintstones, or you have something like the Jetsons. It basically lets them write whatever they want. So
you said the Flintstones, and automatically I just thought of Fenris.
yeah.
Basically frozen ass Flintstones.
It is. So, like in the in-between history or recorded history, and until the 15th millennium, humanity went through its massive expansion, getting rid of all of those things that defines us as an us, and slowly making it out onto space, which is then where we get to a certain point called the dark age of technology. And it's not like dark in this term of like everything went bad. That comes a bit later. But dark in the sense that we are kind of in the dark of what happened, as records of the events are either unreliable, non-existent, or have been purposely erased. A thing that becomes like a common thing in 40k.
So it's referred to as the Dark Ages, mostly for what followed it, which is the Age of Strife.
Yeah.
Age of Strife is a horrible piece in history that basically leads to the calamity that is our current day setting. But let's just analyze the Dark Age of technology for a few minutes. We went into the stars during that time period. We discovered faster than light travel.
Through the warp.
Through the warp. Now, the warp, or it was previously known as the realm of souls, is this kind of immaterial plane that you basically cut through reality to get from point A to point B. Now, there are sentient beings in that dimension. Yeah. In that time, they were not as horrible as they are now. The warp was what you would call calm. The warp is often referred to like an ocean.
Yeah, that's the amazing reference that will make sense to just about anybody who gets into it, because it's so well fitting.
Some legions and the Thousand Sons refer to it, for example, as the Sea of Souls.
Yeah,
that's a good way to refer to it. It's basically a construct of emotions and feelings that have taken sentient forms. Unfortunately, at some point, it really got hectic because most people are assholes and their thoughts are dirt.
Can I make like a very nerdy take onto it?
My brother in Christ, the floor is yours.
Oh, yeah. So there is this thing, just as a background about me. I used to study physics. I have a bachelor's in that, but it's no bragging. It's just 3 years of studies. But in quantum mechanics, we have this thing called quantum superposition. So like physicists, like, they like to add quantum onto everything, but it kind of explains how waves in classical physics, like, can be added to those in quantum mechanics, and to explain the different stages that they are in. So the in superposition has this thing, basically a principle that says that a system is in all of its possible states until it is measured. That makes sense. Anything can be anything all at once until you measure it and distinguish which is which. So now, to put it simply in like the perspective that we have in 40k, this ocean is constantly in flux. And until they found a certain way to measure it, they will know what is what. Because for physicists, it's pretty simple. We have like a preconception of what things are, how physics work. But when you look at something that is made out of feelings, who do you consult to measure things? Your favorite debate bro to argue feeling space argument?
No. Yeah, I don't know if Tucker Carlson can navigate the warp, my dude. He can barely navigate through a coherent point.
Jesus. Yeah. So in a way,
he's busy being upset about M&Ms.
The green M&M, she's so sexy. They took that away from us.
Jesus Christ.
But like, because we are so far in the future, we then have people who have basically generated mutations, those that would be referred to as navigators. So these are the people that would have this ability to see pathways in this turbulent ocean and measure how to traverse it and access that into
one word about the navigators. A common theory
Yeah.
is that they didn't just appear, that they were engineered, because their mutation is so specific and so fine-tuned and so well honed that it doesn't look like a random mutation. It's not like abhumans and ogrins and things like that. Like, it's too perfect. It's too sanguineous angel wings type of mutation.
Yeah.
So there's a common theory, conspiracy theory, if you may, that this was the beginning of the Emperor kind of intervening behind the scenes to guide humanity in the right direction. But we'll get to him shortly, because there's quite a few terms we want to get out the way.
Yeah.
So humanity goes out into the stars. They discover warp travel. They discover navigators, which is a start of experiencing some psyker presence, because navigators are psykers to a degree. They have a hint of it. Psykers are what you would refer to as kind of space warp magicians,
space wizards. Yeah.
something between a wizard and a mutant, like half Gandalf, half X-Men, depending on degree. And they go out into the stars and claim planets through superior technology and something called an STC.
Standard
the STC template
unit.
construct.
Oh, construct, yeah.
Yeah.
Where did I get the unit from?
You're still thinking in physics, my dude.
Yeah.
So the STCs were basically portable manufactories. Think really futuristic, robust 3D printers that would provide anyone, you don't have to have prior knowledge, a simple operating manual with the available materials of the surroundings that you have and how to construct everything that you might need to terraform a planet, create agriculture, create industry. It's at the peak of humanity. STCs contained all of humanity's knowledge and incredibly advanced technology. Now, how advanced was the technology? Well, weapons-wise, for example, they had literal nanobots that would consume entire planets like locusts. They had extremely advanced AI robots fighting their wars. They would chuck black holes at other armies like they were fucking Digimon. There was a lot going on there, and the humanity became so strong from a military standpoint that even other alien empires that were at their peak, for example, the Eldar, we will get back to them shortly, who were immensely powerful and had really advanced technology, got to treaties of non-aggression because going into war with humanity was extremely costly and they would lose.
Yeah, that's about that time that we also have, for example, a certain book that would mention that very clearly is like Dan Abnett's Xeno. With the title itself, that's when we start talking about that, Xenos, the other, the alien. So yeah, the reference that we often use in 40k to describe them is Xenos.
I think the best example to just show how far beyond where we are right now technologically in the settings humanity was back then, things that are considered incredibly powerful weapons and just irreplaceable pieces of technology were mining and gardening tools in the dark age of technology. Terminator armor was used for mining and Imperial Knights were used for agriculture. Jesus fucking Christ, my dude.
Oh, when the church is seeding its garden.
It's just insane. Dark age of technology, humanity was extremely advanced, and in our hubris, just like in the Matrix, we created and relied a lot on artificial intelligence, which had varying forms, from the interactive STCs to the Men of Gold, the Men of Stone, and most importantly, the Men of Iron. The Men of Iron were a key ingredient of the working force. They were part of the military, theoretically. Like there's a lot of contradictory lore about what role they exactly took in society for Dark Age of technology, humanity, but they did a lot for us. And basically, all of this incredible technology rose against us and created a bloody, years-long war across the galaxy that dragged into it even allied Xeno races that were in treaties of non-aggression with us, like the Eldar. The Eldari fought side by side with Dark Age of technology humanity during that time until they got into their own kerfuffle, which led to our next problem. So the rebellion of the Man of Iron is the reason why in present setting Imperium, a lot of technology is feared and they refuse to research it, and it's considered heretical to deal with artificial intelligence or to even go beyond certain limits in research of other fields of technology in fear of such a cataclysmic event happening again.
Yeah.
So humanity were extremely, extremely handicapped after this, and they were going to take another bump on the chin as planets are going to get completely disconnected from one another, as the warp, which was previously a calm and navigatable sea, would turn into an absolute shit show of a turbulent ocean because the Eldar done goofed.
Yeah.
You see, how did this happen is actually interesting. The Eldar, at the peak of their empire, were one of, if not the strongest races in the galaxy, really going head to head with Dark Age of technology humanity, and an advancement that would, some people say, rival the Necrons, which is a race that we'll get to in another time.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because
Necrons are next level. It's like, no.
I just, peak Necron is the absolute top technology in all of the lore. I will put my life on it. But that's beside the point. And don't worry, casual new listener, we will get to Necrons at another time. It's irrelevant for now.
Yeah.
Now, the Eldari, in their complacency and hubris, looked for excitement because they've basically conquered the stars. It's like that Alexander the Great line that seeing that he had nothing left to conquer wept.
Yeah.
So seeing that they have nothing left to accomplish, they started really fucking each other a lot.
Heroism.
Like entire craft worlds, which are basically moving continents that are ships that entire Eldari, I would say families, clans. How would you define it?
Yeah, they are like families, essentially. Yeah.
So entire Eldari clan family things would live on craft worlds, and entire craft worlds would be just absolute murder orgies as they looked for more and more and more excitement and more excess and more drugs and more music, and you can hear the techno in the background.
Yeah, a continental ship with the Pornhub soundtrack playing.
And then humanity did the Bill Burr sitcom skit where he's like sinking a ship and you hear the techno music in the background. He's like, fire number one, and he fires the torpedo. The Eldari took it so far that they've created a new entity in the warp.
Yeah. And remember again, this warp is powered by emotions. So the more decadent, the more insane, the more increase it keeps being fed.
And the Eldari were definitely in their feelings for a good couple of centuries there. So they basically murder fucked into existence a deity that is the definition of excess. And this birth, first of all, doomed the Eldari race because now all their dead souls go to feed that particular deity. So they're literally boned.
Yeah.
This is a pun that you will get when you learn more about the Eldari. I promise you. You will come back and think that line was hilarious. Also, this really fucked up the warp. And I think that that's the point where everything there became malevolent because up until that point, you could say that each chaos god represented a duality of aspects. When Slanesh enters the chat, everyone really just turned up their shit show to 11. There are 4 key figures in the warp. with their own top tier demons, as you call those things in common nomenclature, which are Slanesh, which is the god of excess, Zinch, which is I would say, god of knowledge and mystery. That would be a good definition.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Nurgle, which is basically the definition of decay and death, and for the purpose of rebirth, but he's just like a plague god. Bottom of it. He's rot incarnate. And then there's my boy Khorne, which is the most straightforward of all, who is kind of a cliche god of war and blood and violence.
Murder.
Has some of the more straightforward, satanical looking representation.
He's your classical Satan.
Demons. You cannot tell me that Khorne does not have the coolest looking demons.
Like, they are the coolest.
Scarbrand has entered the motherfucking chat, and he hates it.
Scarbrand loves the chat, but at the same time, he thinks that there's too much circulation going on.
So
you'll understand those memes later.
Yeah, so those entities kind of all shifted their shit show to 11, and this made faster than light travel, interstellar travel, technically impossible, because ships would go into the warp and never come back. God knows what happened to them.
Yeah.
And this led to 5,000 years of the most awful fate you could wish for humanity, because a lot of planets depended on one another for basic utilities. A lot of planets regressed technologically to the point of the literal dark ages. Some planets went all the way back in time and became sort of Mongol raiders. Some became Vikings. Some maintained their technological superiority and became sort of like the Interx, for example, which is, we'll get to them soon when we discuss the Horus Heresy in depth. So it really varied, like you said in the beginning, in the intro, really depends on which planet you landed on, how fucked you are or not.
Yeah.
But most of all, the worst planet to be on is arguably Earth, or as it's called in the lore, Terra. Because we went into the stars because we completely butchered the resources of this planet.
As a cool example, we have this thing called the Mariana Trench under the oceans. Well, it's dried up. You can walk through it in 40k. Well, not even in 40k. We are what, 22k about this time? Yeah, in between 20 and 30.
It's arguable on which point exactly things really turned shitty, but Age of Strife left Terra bereft of resources and at the mercy of just the worst things. Now, one of the things that happened during the Age of Strife is the appearance. It's arguable. It's kind of between the Dark Age of Technology and the Age of Strife, but it's the appearance of what is known as a Psyker, as we described earlier. These lovable, powerful, explosive space wizards. You say space wizards, I say 40k X-Men. Now, the thing is, humanity has been without Psykers for eons at this point. In ancient history, we had shamans. Remember that. We'll get to that soon.
Yeah.
We had shamans which were claimed to be Psykers to a degree. But other races had Psykers for a very long time and knew the dangers of it. The thing is, the warp also got real fucky at that point, and those malevolent creatures that are there began preying on Psykers. This led to demonic incursions on a lot of planets. As Psykers take their power from the warp, this is what you need to remember. So Psykers would get spurts of what you'd call super-powered space schizophrenia. They just explode, burning people around in psychic fire, start shooting lightning out their dick for no good reason. Things got weird.
Yeah.
Things got really weird. Now, this led to them being persecuted and really kind of genocided on a lot of planets.
Yeah. it dive into this thing that 40k does very well in like in a way that a comparison to certain pieces of literature that obviously Warhammer has taken some inspiration from the things like Dune or Lovecraft. Like peering into the warp is like peering into the abyss. The saying, when you peer into it, it stares back. So these psychers, of course, who got to peer just a tiny percentage of what the warp had to offer, would just be overwhelmed. And you have thematics like the things that we have also experienced in our past, the persecutions of people, calling it like possessions, turning it into sort of religious themes, although it's not religion, so to speak, but like worship and stuff like that started happening. And thus, as you said, people just being slaughtered and executed in the similar fashion to like the Middle Ages.
You know what you reminded me of?
Mm?
When you said about the Abyss comparison?
Yeah.
It reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from the lore.
Sure.
I don't recall who said it, but I remember that quote verbatim. Victory slipped through our fingers the moment Horus chose to reach into the dark and something reached back. That's one of my favorite quotes in all of the lore. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
Now, demonic incursions are happening, and on Terra, you had something that is just the worst in all the universe. It was a lot of humans. Large groups of humans together, and some fuckery will happen. What we had was witch armies and techno barbarians and cults worshiping just the most absurd thing. And this leads to the rise of our main protagonist, arguably, a humble Chad warlord who calls himself, not a joke, the Emperor of Mankind. This is a self-given title, my friend. He's that big of a narcissist. And then we're surprised that he's a bad dad. When I started redoing the research to do this explanation, like, why are we even shocked? This motherfucker called himself an emperor before he was one. Like, that's an ominous sign. Like, that's some Kanye West shit. Like, my greatest regret in life is I'll never get to see myself perform live. That is a quote.
Basically.
He's just space Kanye West. God damn it. Oh, man. Shit, we're getting spicy again. So the Emperor is a humongously powerful psyker. Even in those stages, he becomes more powerful later. We will get to that.
Yeah.
He is incredibly powerful. He's what you also call a perpetual. This is exposed later in the lore, that he is basically effectively immortal and has been present in humanity for an exceptionally long time. Yeah. Some say the beginning of time, from like tribal era Turkey. This is what they refer to it in the lore. Erda, in a specific book called Saturnine, Erda gives a good explanation on who he is and what's his background. Originally, they say his name was Neron or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot there. So this Giga Chad Psyker, who was also, but at least by appearance, is 8 foot tall and built like a brick shit house, apparently walked around unobserved for the entirety of history.
Yeah, theories speculate that apparently, due to his psychic ability, he could do the Superman trick. Like, oh, I put on a set of glasses. Now I'm no longer Superman. I'm Clark Kent. So he like warp our perception of his true self.
Facts. That's basically what he does. So this guy, who is, aside from being an incredibly powerful space wizard, is also a brilliant scientist. And he begins, and this will be a key factor later, do a lot of genetic engineering. And I mean, a lot. Now, the first thing that he does is he creates a personal army of bodyguards, like all narcissists do. And he creates the most fabulous faction in all of the lore. Cue the Killer Man music. He creates the Adeptus Custodes, or back then as they were just called the Custodes, 10,000 strong army of handmade works of art. They are immensely powerful, immune to chaos warp energy, in supercomputer brained perfect warriors. Like they're one of the first episodes that we will do deep diving into the lore has to be the Custodes, because they are so cool.
Yeah, they are, and they are very fundamental to a lot of things in 40k.
And they are Henry Cavill's army of choice. Our Lord and Savior is a man of taste and quality. Now, aside from being super smart and super competent and pressing all the benches, the Adeptus Custodes are unique. Each one is a work of art. The work begins on them as babies. They were created as babies from royal families, mostly, as their tribute into the Imperium of mankind, which were obviously meaning is they were surrendering to the Emperor while he was conquering them.
Yeah, and here the narcissism again. He calls it an imperium, not an empire. Like, come on, man. You're coining your own phrases, your own words. The man.
You cue the New World Symphony and the montage of him massacring his way through Terra. Now, he also creates a foot soldier. These foot soldiers are called Thunder Warriors. These are hulking brutes that are really strong, really fast, really mentally unstable. And they degrade over time like yogurt. Now, I kind of think that the Thunder Warriors are pretty cool. I don't know what you think about the Thunder Warriors.
I like them. I like them a lot. I kind of appreciate the brutishness, like how wild they could be. There would be talks about that in later episode, but like the comments that some of them will make afterwards, at least those who remained, I like them. I like the Thunder Warriors.
By the way, one of the saddest short stories in all of the lore is centered around one of the surviving Thunder Warriors. Did you read it? It's in a short story anthology. It's quite tragic and heartbreaking. I shed a manly tear listening to that story. I can't even tell you where. It's kind of a funny story. I was driving to a jiu-jitsu contest, which was in 2018.
Yeah.
And it was this long walk from where cars were parked and to where the competition was held, because it was inside of like a place where, like a village situation where you can't drive to everywhere. So we're kind of walking into this big competition hall. And I had a very, very long walk, and I started listening to it in the drive there, and I kind of finished it on the walk to the hall. And right when this Giga Chad of a Thunder Warrior gets absolutely executed by a Custodes, and it's absolutely sad and tragic. I'm walking into a competition hall to get weighed in for my category, and I have a tear running down my cheek because of what I'm listening to. It just was the most absurd scenario. But it's worth, I'll get you the name later. It's absolutely worth listening to. Even if you know how it ends, it just, I cannot encapsulate how much feels have been felt during that story.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of their best ones. It's up there for me with the Prince of Crows.
Oh, no, okay. Well, that's high praise.
Yeah. Now, these Thunder Warriors were used in what was called the Unification Wars, as the Emperor conquers continent after continent on Terra. When that was concluded, the Emperor, being the dick that he is, looks at his creations and said, "Yeah, for the next step of my plan, you just don't cut the mustard."
Yep.
And he creates the next step, which is the Adeptus Astartes, the Legio Astartes.
Yeah.
And they were created from something called a gene seed. A gene seed comes from something called a Primarch. The Primarchs are 20, well,
18.
18 genetically engineered demigod babies that he created using, arguably, that's the common theory, power that he stole from the gods of chaos.
Yeah.
So the Emperor is a dick on the ethereal level and also on the human level. This is a I'm starting to think that he's the bad guy in this. So you want to put in a couple words about the Primarchs, or should I keep going?
Yeah, the Primarchs are these incredibly, as you said, genetically engineered demigod that were to be playing a huge role in the Emperor's plan of spreading humanity across the stars and conquering it and doing away with not just the forces of chaos by starving them of worship as they would have dominated space, at least humanity would have, but also making humanity very much dominant over the entire galaxy. Each and every one of them being born with a purpose to serve and with a genetic potential that would vary from person to person. Like some are more extraordinary than others, but what they all have in common was that they were meant to be or at least the gene fathers of these Legio Astartes, and lead each and all their own legion. But as it goes with every major significant plan made by a giga-brain person, something always goes awry, and depending on the accounts that you take, they were either yoinked by the forces of chaos or yeeted into space by the forces of chaos. Each and every one of them landing on a specific planet that may or may not have further caused flaws in their genes.
They all have some things that are common with one another. They're all just immeasurably intelligent and absurdly powerful. Some have unnatural abilities. Some of them has apparently dog genetics.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck it. It's in the lore. I'm not gonna say.
So some are literal angels.
Our fabulous Hawk boy. And just things get weird once you get to the Primarchs. The Primarchs is where the lore starts to get. This is where all the fuckery starts.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, everything is kind of within the realm of reason. Like, okay,
yeah, like even the
mutation and genetic engineering, and now he's just making deities out of scrap. That's where the fuckery starts.
Which is pretty well put, because they are often referred to as gods.
Also, Primarchs, even if they don't fall to chaos, tend to take on different forms in the warp. Corvus Corax becoming a literal shadow crow.
Yeah.
Things get weird, folks. We're about to get weird. Now, as these god babies were yeeted across the universe, the Emperor says, well, this isn't going to stop my plan. I just have to find my god babies again. He leads Legio Astartes into the stars to conquer planets and get back his boys. Now, the first thing that he does, he creates a treaty with Mars. The reason for that is that Mars, which will play a key factor later, is where most of the advanced technology is consolidated. They have a technophile religion there. He creates a treaty with them called the Treaty of Mars, because he's very creative with names like that.
Yeah.
And they set boundaries for what they can and cannot do. And Mars agrees to manufacture all of the gear for the armies of the Imperium.
Yeah.
So you kind of need to respect their boundaries, because they make all of your shit.
Actually, that's a pretty good point for a discussion. Like, could the Emperor have forcefully subjugated the Mechanicus? And the answer is maybe. Like, perhaps at what cost, though?
It's honestly arguably that's a war he couldn't outright win at that
Yeah.
point, because he was very dependent on them technologically at that point.
Yes.
Now, thus begins the most glorious period for the newly reformed Imperium. This is basically the last time that things are kind of good in the Imperium. This is called the Great Crusade. It's literally that, and its armies going into the stars, convincing worlds into what you'd call compliance through various means of diplomacy, and if you're goddamn Conrad Kerr's terrorist tactics. And one by one, planets go into the Imperium or die refusing, and the Emperor starts finding his children. The first one to be found is probably the most important narratively speaking, and that's our good old boy Horus.
Horus Lupercal, a self-loving bold man at the time.
The Gang King of Chthonian.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Horus is a really controversial character to a degree, because he starts off amazing.
Yeah.
And then his writing just falls off a cliff so bad later on in the lore. But these are things that we will dive into at another chapter, and you can make your own conclusions, because to a degree, me and Jack disagree about Horus.
Oh yeah, that we do.
But that's for another day. So Horus is the first one to be found, and he creates this wonderful bond with his father, because you guys have to understand, the Emperor is extremely charismatic.
Yeah.
And like the best narcissists, he will gaslight the fuck out of you. So he spends decades fighting side by side with Horus until they find the next brother, which is Leman Russ, and so on and so forth with the rest of the Primarchs. So there is this deep connection, which is kind of one-sided, by the way, between Horus and the Emperor.
Yeah.
Horus is kind of a spoiled child in that situation. Like, but I want all of your attention, Daddy.
Yeah, give it to me.
I'm supposed to be your favorite one. I don't care that he has angel wings. There. This leads to a real crisis later on. Now, how did this crisis happen? Two things happen. The Emperor basically ordains Horus as the War Master to lead the crusade in his
stead. Yeah.
While he goes to work on a project on Terra that he tells no one really much about.
Yeah.
All that they know is that the Emperor is abandoning their great work to go play in his garage on Terra.
And leaving Big Brother Horus to take care of stuff.
Daddy has to work on his Dodge Charger. Give me some me time, basically.
The Emperor rode in there with a Chevy and said, I'm gone. You take care of your brothers now, don't you?
Biggie went to buy smokes and everything went to shit. So one more thing happens, though, before he abandons the crusade, and is that one of the other Primarchs, known as Lorgar Aurelian, apparently has fucked up to a titanic degree. One of the key things about the Imperium of Man, which I refrain from mentioning up until this point, is that this is a secular, science-based empire. Their whole point was to eradicate the witch cults and get rid of superstition and lead humanity into an age of progress.
Indeed. Remember, as we mentioned before, the fact that since we are so far into the future, such things as our recollection of what religion used to be, all of those things that we know today, they were basically non-existent. So when they came back, the Emperor saw the destructiveness and how people will also tend to invest a lot of feelings into it. There's also theory as to the fact that he even appeared in the first place was that he foresaw how such behavior would have fed into the worship of these old gods, these chaos gods. So, yeah, obviously enforcing something as secularism would have been a must.
Lorgar didn't get that memo.
No.
What happened with Lorgar is that questions were asked about his progression during the Great Crusade, because him and his legion, the Word Bearers, not foreshadowing at all there, we're taking a long time to advance through planets and getting compliance from planets, while other legions were doing work to 4 or 5 or even 10 times the rate to which they were progressing. Yeah. They were spending years at a time on each planet. The reason is Lorgar didn't get the memo that the Emperor is secular and claims that he's a god. Now, to his credit, and this is the only thing I'll give Lorgar credit for, this is easy to confuse that the 8-foot-tall muscular man with luscious black hair and an aura of gold,
clad in a golden armor, okay, by the way,
with a burning sword, who can move planets basically with his mind. The Emperor's power at that point, after stealing power from the Chaos Gods to create the Primarchs, is basically limitless. This guy powers, while he's out in the stars doing his thing, fighting and reclaiming humanity, he is also simultaneously powering something called the Astronomicon, which is basically the North Star for navigators in the Imperium to find their way across the warp the best way possible.
Yeah.
He is a literal GPS for all of the universe, at least for the known galaxy, while just walking around doing his shit. His power is immeasurable.
And he is not a god.
The confusion is quite understandable. So he makes sure that every planet that he pauses on worships the Emperor as a god, creates statues in his name, accepts him as their Lord and Savior, the Emperor of mankind.
Hence
and
the word
the
bearers.
Emperor says, fuck it. Now, he is warned about this. He does not heed the warning.
No.
So the Emperor decides to take a more hands-on approach to parenting.
Oh, very hands-on.
There is a city called Monarchia.
Yes, on the wonderful planet of Colchis.
The place that gave us Cor Pharaon. Ooh. We'll get to that later.
The so-called perfect city.
And by all descriptions, it was quite lovely. And the people were quite wholesome. You know, once they were done with all their religious wars and Lorgar straightened everything out there.
Yep.
But they worshipped the Emperor as a god. Like, there were more temples in the Emperor's name and more statues in his honor than any other planet in the galaxy in that particular city. Now, the Emperor sends one of his sons, a likable character for the most part, except for this one bit where he was being a bit of a dick, called Rabute Gilliman, and his Custodes and himself
Bob
to
G.
nuke the city to ashes. Now, how much did he nuke the city, do you ask? Well, people who observed the city from afar while it was being bombarded from space suffered from blindness because it was burning. That's how bad. Like, he nuked it so hard that people in the surrounding areas got blind. That's how bad it was. So yeah, he took it quite seriously. Now, the thing is, they are being attacked. They call the distress signal. Eventually, that distress signal gets to Lorgar, and he lands on Monarchia to find it in ash and ruin, and he sees the Ultramarines and Rabute Gilliman there, and he loses his shit. This is the part where he gets broken.
Yeah.
He is irreparably damaged at this point because, let's be honest, his father figure / god figure stabs him in the heart.
Yeah.
This is one of the redeeming qualities that Lorgar has. he was genuinely and honestly straightforward betrayed by the Emperor.
Yeah.
I know I made fun of him in tier list, but he has a degree of tragic character traits to him, as he says, all I ever wanted was the truth. And the truth is the one thing that the Emperor never gives the Primarchs. He's always holding something close to the vest.
Yes.
Lorgar suffers the humiliating experience of being psychically forced to kneel in the ashes of his greatest work. This would ruin
along his entire legion.
Yeah, that was that's the Emperor's kind of biggest flex. To put it into perspective, the Word Bearer Legion was, depending on which bit of lore you're looking at, anywhere between 70,000 to 120,000 Space Marines.
Yeah.
Depending on which edition you're talking about. He literally made a literal legion, by the definition of the word legion, scores of men kneel in the ground.
With a single word.
Consent wasn't a factor.
Oh, no. Emotional damage, that's for sure.
Oh, and there are testaments from Space Marines and that Legion that talk about the insult that they felt. Yeah. This left an entire Legion, tens of thousands of super warriors genetically engineered to be the tip of the spear against the horrors of the universe, looking for a morale boost and answers. And like you said, you stare into the dark is going to stare back. The planet that Lorgar came from, Colchis, in his earlier days, worshipped something that was similar to the pantheon of chaos that we have right now, which is Tzeentch, Slanesh, Nurgle, and Khorne.
Yeah.
So he went right back to his roots with the wonderful enthusiasm of Khor Pharon and Erebus, the Cucks. And this is where we start the long and winded downfall toward what's called the Horus Heresy. Through a lot of convoluted circumstances that lead to Horus being stabbed by a poison, not a poisonous, but a sort of a magical blade called an anatheme blade.
Yeah.
Which is a weapon that is specifically designed or targeted to kill a specific person. And even with his enhanced Primarch's physiology,
he can't combat it.
Yeah, because it's tearing him apart from the inside on a magical level.
Yeah.
Was it magical or technological? I'm not really sure.
I think it was magical.
There was some warp fuckery there. There has to be.
Yeah.
I have to go back to Galaxy and Flames for that one. But a souped up pay to win blade from World of Warcraft type of shit stabbed him, targeting him specifically, destroying him from the inside, and he started to get reached into by those voices in the dark while he was in an hallucinogenic state. Now, one of his brothers, called Magnus the Red, who is a bit of a space wizard himself, who was told during something that was affectionately called the Council of Nicaea.
Yep, the one we referred to earlier.
The hypocrisy of a literal Council of Nicaea in a secular imperium, Jesus Christ. He was told to not do any advanced warp fuckery, but he senses the distress that Horus is in. He sees a vision of that as well. And he understands, oh no, the Emperor is going to get betrayed and shanked. I'm going to warn him.
Yeah.
Magnus gets played, does everything wrong, and basically ruins the Emperor's project, which is a webway project. This is Eldari technology meant to make human beings less dependent on the warp for travel, thus eventually starving the Sea of Souls from its fuel as people forget about it and stop dealing with it, and effectively killing chaos. That did not work.
No.
It's kind of Kool-Aid Man's his way through the psychic wards of the webway, leading to a gaping warp wound in the middle of Terra underneath the Imperial Palace that has to be blocked at all times. This is the plot of a fantastic book called Master of Mankind. How they deal with that. Please read it.
Read it. It's wonderful.
Amazing. It's one of the best full-length novels in all of 40k and 30k. It's just mwah,
Yeah.
just perfect. And you will fall in love with the Custodes like we all do eventually. Just
Yeah.
constant.
Also has a little bit of that demonology stuff in there to give you some great understandings of some important characters as well.
And some background into the Unification Wars. And the thing about 40k, the lore is scattered across multiple books and little extracts, and it's not cohesive. There's not one book that you can read it linearly from start to finish, which is one of the reasons why we made this video.
Yes.
But the Horus Heresy itself was a 7-year-long civil war that was, I would say, as worse for mankind as the Age of Strife.
Oh yeah, I'll say much worse. Because
how bad was it, you ask? Well, in the present day settings, we are 10,000 years after the conclusion of the Horus Heresy, and shit is still fucked.
Yep.
Now, what happened in the Horus Heresy? You remember those god babies called Primarchs? Each had an army. They basically went halvesies, half what betrayed the Emperor, half defended him, but the half that betrayed the Emperor had fucking demons with them.
Yeah.
So, got complicated. Got real complicated. So, the conclusion of all of it, spoilers, is humanity's last stand on Terra, because the forces of chaos, through a lot of fuckery and convoluted bullshit, basically managed to limit the defenses of Terra to only 3 legions out of all the loyal legions, and just through a war of attrition lead to kind of a forced final conflict between Horus and the Emperor. There are a lot of reasons how it got to a one-on-one conflict there. We're not going to get there today.
No.
There will be another video about the Horus Heresy and the Siege of Terra, where we dive into much more detail. But if we were to start talking about it now, I'll probably be done by next year.
Yeah.
So no. To put, like I said in reference, just on the Horus Heresy alone, the war, not even the Primarch stories, just the war.
No, just the war.
Dozens of 15-hour-long audiobooks.
Yep. Do you know how much laundry you can do in that time?
And dishes.
And dishes.
This is why 40k is kind of intimidating and off-putting to a lot of people, because as much as like YouTube channels such as ourselves hypocritically saying, try to bring it down to bite-sized pieces of accessible information, we can't summarize it. Like, even if you break it down into smaller subjects, like for example Major Kill does, it's still 15-minute long videos. There's no way to make it concise.
No.
Warhammer 40k started in 1989 and has been consistently written since. This is the longest running science fiction franchise ever. And I'm saying it even though Star Wars started earlier, but Star Wars isn't constantly being expanded on.
No.
Not to this degree. Yes, I know there are novel books and computer games such for Star Wars, but come on now, guys. You can stuff 9 Star Wars inside the lore for 40k.
Yeah.
Now, the Horus Heresy concludes on the Emperor remaining sort of half-alive corpse on what's called the Golden Throne. Horus gets Hakkai'd out of existence. Our best Primarch dies. Everything is fucked, and the dumbest people possible are left to manage the damage control.
And boy, are they dumb.
Yeah, and half the Primarchs that are supposed to be there as a contingency are dealing with their own version of PTSD, so they are not up to snuff. Anything. Robude goes to play in the sand in his little mini empire in Ultramar. Rogel Dorn chases Perturabo. Jagatai Khan chases Eldar. Leman Russ chases a goddamn fruit tree in the war. Like, no one's doing his job.
No, they're all busy doing their thing.
Like, I can understand why the Custodes, even like at present setting, speak ill of Primarchs, because the Custodes are the only ones doing their fucking job.
Yeah, for more than 10,000 years, they've been
Yeah.
standing, literally.
It's just insane. Like, the more you talk about it, like, I know Primarchs are probably the most interesting characters to debate because
Yeah.
they're just so cool. But the more you think about how they react to shit, just like, y'all are a waste of genetic material.
But like at the same time, it also makes sense since, sure, as we've said, they landed on different planets and were raised according to the cultures and whatever of said planets, and some of them did have parents, but the actual father was never truly there to guide them as to what was to happen. So they had to figure out things on their own, more or less.
They didn't do a good job of it.
Not at all.
Now, this entire kerfuffle leads us to our present day setting. Now, how would you describe the present day setting? When I was asked to describe the Imperium of Man to a friend who I was bringing into the lore, the only metaphor that I could bring to describe present day 40k setting humanity is Catholic space Nazis.
Oh yeah, it is a fascistic empire that is guided by an immense church organization with ties to spies and military
And
and
the worst, most corrupt bureaucracy
yeah,
and never-ending red tape. Dealing with the Imperium of Man makes sitting in the DMV look like a bit of paradise.
where
Just the reality for the everyday person in 40k lore, for most part, aside from like specific planets that are very advanced and cultivated, like in Ultramar, that are very well taken care of, the absolute majority of the untold trillions of human beings that they live in poverty to work and feed the war machine that is never endless, never stops churning, because there's only war in this setting. Humanity is besieged from all sides by Xenos and space locusts.
yeah.
We'll get to that, I promise you. And fucking violent mushrooms and
Oi,
oi,
that are British.
I have you know that orcs is best. But like there's a reason why it's called grimdark. Like that's a term coined after the setting of 40k. It is the most depressing dystopian future, I think, in all of sci-fi.
I'll say so. I haven't found a comparison yet that has achieved that level of darkness. It is truly depressing.
Some rival the cruelty, but those that rival the cruelty don't rival the horror.
Yeah.
Like in like the fanaticism of like religious zealots. Like there was a book series called the Left Hand of God.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah, which was a really good introspective look at like cults of religious zealots, but it wasn't like middle age setting, and it didn't have this level of just gruesome body horror and abject violence.
Yeah. And it's
So
all also just due to how contrarian it is, because you are set in the future where by any normal means one would think they should know better, but they know nothing.
the situation with humanity in the 40k setting is that by the time you get to present day Imperium, humanity has been through rise and fall and rise and fall, and just the worst possible horrors that it made them regress to superstition and imperial cults and having to worship a corpse sitting on a throne, powering the Astronomicon with his last bit of living energy. We might have to do a deep dive into the Emperor in one of the next episodes. What I would like is, because this debut was kind of had a purpose, but we want to be free flowing with this. Comment in the comments, where would you actually want us to start? Do you want us to start with the Primarchs, with the Space Marines,
with the Emperor himself?
Do you want us to start with Ephrael Stern? Please tell me you want us to start with
please. Oh, God. The sisters as a whole.
Commences.
Fucking cool.
Spawn me, space mommy. Fuck, I bet she benches more than I do.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so much to cover, and for most cases, there's going to be a debate. For example, I know that me and Jack have a really deep disagreement when it comes to, for example, the Tyranids.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be an interesting debate. Really, like, chiming in the comments. We want to make the Battle Brothers project into a community. Obviously, there'll be a separate channel soon. We're just we're making this as we go along, because the basic premise was, this is a couple of dudes who just want to talk about Warhammer, because we do it either way.
Yeah.
So y'all might as well be part of the conversation.
Indeed.
Do you have anything to add, my friend?
No, I think that is a very good start. That covers most of the basics of things. And if you're new to Warhammer 40k, I think that this should be something that will pique your interest.
And for the more experienced listeners, I know we skimmed through a lot, but there's just so much fucking lore.
Yeah.
There's so much lore. Like, you start writing down, like, oh, I'll just give the intro to the setting, and you're like 19 bullet points in, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, indeed.
Like, I'll send you a picture of the notes I took, and it's like fucking 7 sections long. Like, why? Why is it so long? Oh,
I just wanted to talk about a couple of ages, and then bam, vine boom.
It's like I said in the beginning, you start explaining something and you realize, wait, but there's so much backstory missing for you to be able to understand that. So you have to go into that, and we have to go into that. And we still skipped the fucking War in Heaven and the Necrons and the old ones, because that's irrelevant for the Imperium of Man.
I like that we did address that thing regarding the Templin Institute. That was like a must, because when you come across like comments like that, it may sometimes be things that alienate people. I have one of the most popular videos that I have on the channel already was something more or less similar to that, like comments that kind of would have made me being ward off the hobby because of a statement that somebody thought was the norm, but obviously wasn't, because luckily I had people like yourself who had talked with me already. And, you know, it's just great to have these things clarified. So
just to clarify something else, since you brought up the intro, I kind of took a shot at another channel there. This isn't going to be that type of podcast. We're not going to take shots at other channels on a consistent basis. Actually would really like to cooperate with channels when we do further episodes, because we're really fans of a lot of other lore channels. Like, I'm a huge fan of Kirioth and Luton and Chapter Master Volrak. You wonderful human being. You siege my soul, my dude.
Yeah, for me, I will love the likes of Baltimore, who does the
he is so epic. I have to thank you for putting me on him. His voice just
man,
I want him to. He has to read me my tax returns. Like, he does everything so well.
You will do him. You will do him. He's amazing.
He's just amazing. if you would like to know why I took a shot at a particular channel, just Google about him and then take into account that I'm Jewish and Jack's black.
Yeah.
And the math. Fuck me.
Yeah.
We would like to make a real community feel to this. We're going to have a website going on. We're going to have a lot of things going on, but we just wanted to get it started, because if we were to focus on logistics before we start doing it, it would never get done.
What would be the point? Yeah.
We're both fathers. We both have shit to do. You put something off, it just never gets done. And I know it because I'm looking at a Titan model right now that just I'm just never going to get around to it. Just never going to get around to it. I swear to God.
Look for a serpentine creature and bash its head with it, and then you'll have it painted red.
The Inquisition would like to know your location.
Yeah, I think
the D&D campaign that I'm just never gonna finish.
Oh no!
You put things off, they never get done. So as I said, reach out to us in the comments. Feel free to say whatever. Try to keep it civil. Let's realign our chakras and have a nice conversation.
Yes, we're gonna sage the comment section if need be.
The comment section was actually very civil, all things considered.
Yeah.
But like, even the people who got upset, I understand it, because it's like sports. You pick a team. Like most people are not like me, that I can look at something like the lore and just be completely separated from it emotionally to a degree. Because like, I can objectively say that my favorite Primarch has a lot of messed up shit in him, but it doesn't stop him from being my favorite Primarch. It's like, I used to have a dog, right?
Yeah.
That dog had one eye and a bad leg. I still fucking love that dog.
He's the best dog in the world, and you can't tell me otherwise.
He was the goodest of boys.
Oh, that's so nice.
We like pets in this house.
Yep. Actually, you know what? I'm getting a cat in a couple of days. Another one.
Oh, that's beautiful. Did I send you the picture of my daughter with her Doberman?
Yeah, you did.
Like, so those who don't know, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and at her mother's house, yes, I'm divorced. Shocking. She has an immense Doberman.
It's massive.
It's titanic.
It's basically one of those mastiffs from Necromunda.
Yeah, he's there are two types of Dobermans: work dogs and show dogs. He's a show dog. He's just titanically massive, just an ogre of a Doberman. And there's this picture of my daughter just chilling in the backyard in the sunlight with this just warhound titan of a dog by her legs. And it's like, you're thinking, that's the safest girl in the neighborhood. No one's messing around with that. I love that picture. I love that dog too. He will wreck someone's day if they come near my daughter. I love that. And if we messed up anything, please feel free to let us know in the comments. And as they say in the Space Wolves, I will recognize my failings and will be sure to correct it.
Or as in the Inquisition, your correction has been noted and duly ignored.
The Inquisition has some of the coldest quotes. Like, innocence proves nothing. That's just such a cold line.
Oh man, the Inquisition. Oh man, I'm looking forward to talk about those at a certain episode. It's going to be fun.
You know what? Do you want us to have a poll, like have 3 options and people to choose what they want us to talk about next? Because we can also progress through the lore linearly, or we can just jump from subject to subject all willy-nilly. I don't care. I like all this shit.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Same here.
So we can talk about the Emperor, we can talk about the Legions, we can talk about the Inquisition in present 40k. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and let's build this community and become all honorable battle brothers.
Hell yeah. That said, guys, see you in the next episode.
And as always, the Emperor protects.